Welcome all to our information session for the University of Chicago Master of Liberal Arts. We are thrilled to have you here in the virtual room. Let me welcome you to our gorgeous campus, although we will update this next time because it is a very white campus right now with snow all over it, but just as beautiful. And we show this because this is the place where big ideas are born that change the world. And even though this is a primarily online degree, one thing you'll hear about is the opportunity to come for residential session weeks where you can be deeply embedded in this extraordinary universe of ideas and inquiry. Over the next hour, we are going to welcome you and hear from our three speakers. We're going to give you a snapshot of the Master of Liberal Arts. We're going to go through and detail the learning journey. Then we'll talk through the timeline and details. And we will reserve at least 15 minutes for Q&A so that we can make sure to get to any questions that are on your mind. So let me start by saying that I am on the left here on the screen, Seth Green, and I'm the Dean of the Graham School. And one of the many reasons I am so grateful to be dean of this extraordinary school is that one of the jewels of our school, and dare I say at the university, is the Master of Liberal Arts. We are the home of lifelong liberal arts learning. We allow individuals across all ages and stages to engage with all of the intellectual ideas of this great university. And the MLA in particular is designed for individuals who want to really go deep into inquiry through an advanced graduate study and to have the opportunity to go across the university. But rather than me tell you more, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Murphy, the director of the Master of Liberal Arts, to introduce himself, and then we will hear from two students in the MLA, and then we will go on to briefly hear from my colleague Carrie, who is in charge of our recruitment and marketing and who you may be in touch with. Tim, who are you?
Hello, everyone. As Seth said, my name is Tim Murphy. I serve as the director of the Master Liberal Arts program. I've worked with the MLA in different capacities for over 10 years now, which is a long time, but also a testament to what an incredible program this is. And I'm looking forward to getting into some of the details why here shortly.
Great, thanks, Tim. So Sarah, I'm eager for you to talk to us about a little who you are and what brought you to the Master of Liberal Arts.
Okay, great, Seth. So my name is Sarah Carson. I have my own marketing company, and I usually work with manufacturing in the B2B space. And I'm also a part-time or half-time lecturer at North Central College, where I've been teaching in the Communication and Media Studies department and English and the philosophy departments. Which actually is, I feel, a testament to being part of that Master of Liberal Arts. I don't think there's any other master's degree that would qualify me for teaching in all three of those divisions of the school.
Great.
And
And oh yeah,
you want me to tell you why I chose the school?
I realize I want to hold that for the first set of questions. So Lee,
You
tell
got it.
us who you are.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Lee Greenfield. I graduated from the University of Chicago Law School in 1989, and I just completed my MLA degree in December. So that's 36 years between U of C degrees. I don't think that's a record, but it's certainly got to be somewhere up there. I've been a practicing antitrust lawyer for 35 years at the same firm. I primarily live in Washington, D.C. I also have a home in Chicago and try to spend as much time there as possible, except when it's really cold, like now. It's cold enough in D.C. now, so it'll probably be, March or April till I make it back to Chicago, but glad to be here.
And finally, Carrie, who are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Dempsey. I'm Director of Recruitment for the MLA program. My team and I are here to support you throughout the application process, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like deeper in this conversation.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to move us forward then into the snapshot of the Master of Liberal Arts. And as you may know, if you're in this virtual room, the MLA is designed to help you grow in three ways: as a leader, as a problem solver and critical thinker, and as a communicator through the advanced study in the liberal arts. And it stems from a belief we have at the university that when you go deep into different divisions and areas of thought. It really deepens your ability to see things from different lenses, which are the necessary qualities for a leader. It allows you to think in new, creative, and critical ways, which are essential to your problem solving. And it often challenges you to communicate across complexity. And so we think of this degree as transformative education for a transforming world. And that's because as the world becomes more complex and dynamic, and especially with the now incredible technological progress of artificial intelligence, there has really never been a moment where your ability to think creatively and uniquely is more important for both your personal and your professional growth. And so we see AI and the many other disruptions in society as tailwinds for the liberal arts and for this moment of graduate education. And the way we think about the MLA in terms of the experience, and we'll hear from Lee and Sarah on this, is as a cognitive boot camp where often individuals come back in midlife to sharpen their synthetic thinking, meaning their ability to take lots of diverse pieces of information and actually organize it into through lines in their mind about ways of approaching a particular challenge. We also have an opportunity for you to specialize, as we'll talk about, and there are three areas within the MLA that allow you to go deep in literary studies and ethics and leadership, and then our latest in tech and society. And then finally, this is an opportunity to join a really vibrant community of accomplished peers and be, sometimes we say among nerds, who really love the life of the mind and want to go deep into inquiry so that they can better understand the world around them. In terms of the who, the MLA has many different types of learners, but there are a few things that, when you look at the data, are true of many of the students who find their way to the MLA. The first is that nearly 6 in 10 already hold a graduate degree. So Lee mentioned he had a law degree and then came back 36 years later. That time period is longer than most in the MLA, but that idea that you may already have a professional degree but want to complement it with the liberal arts is actually a majority of students who find their way to our doors. We have a national and global audience, and so we do have a disproportionate number of students coming from Illinois, about a third, compared to obviously Illinois is not a third of the world's population. But the reason we show that is it really is true that most of the individuals finding their way to this degree are from around the country and the world. And in your classroom, you will have people from all different professions, all different ages, and all different places in the world. And that really adds to the diversity in the room. And on average, individuals have about 2 decades of professional experience, and many of them in senior leadership roles. In terms of the thematic overlap, we find there are a few characteristics that are in common when MLA students are asked to describe themselves. They are individuals who are deeply curious, who really love rigor, who are innovators. They want to use the creativity of the liberal arts to be part of an entrepreneurial set of ideas and values, even in areas as far apart as law, medicine, and academics. And then finally, they are highly collaborative and really enjoy the joint inquiry that takes place in one of our classrooms. But rather than me tell you all about this, let me stop sharing my screen so we can see our speakers and let me ask them to tell you. And Sarah, now is the time I want to ask you. Why did you choose to pursue the MLA, especially given in your case, you already have a career in marketing and communications, and one might assume that a creative writing or strategic communications master's would have been your next step. So can you talk a little bit about what led you to the interdisciplinary Master of Liberal Arts?
Absolutely. I don't know if Tim remembers the first time meeting me, but I remember the first time meeting Tim during my student interviews. And I have to say that that's one of the reasons that I came to the University of Chicago. It started with Tim, and it went from there of having these individual relationships with people in the school who were stewarding your decision making and the whole process. And when Tim and I talked during that first interview, I was actually considering another program that was creative writing focused. And during that conversation, we talked about like how cool it would be able to be on campus at the University of Chicago, which was not an opportunity elsewhere. And I really liked the idea of the interdisciplinary approach to education. And I think I would get more out of the studying things I'd never studied before instead of just going deeper into writing, but to spend a little time in an ethnography class or a science class, and also the writing or English classes, as a way to feel more well-rounded at the end of my education. And so I think that's my full answer, is like it was both individualized, interdisciplinary, and the ability to come to campus.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And Lee, I want to hear from you, especially as someone who knew from your study here in the 80s at the law school, this is the place where fun comes to die. What led you back here?
Well, we had some fun back then, and times have changed. So I don't know that that's fair. But so look, I'd had a long and fulfilling career as a lawyer in a big firm, which has been an accomplishment. I've been happy with what I do, but I was nearing 60 a couple years ago. My kids were out of the house, and I needed a new challenge. And some people might call that a midlife crisis, but I think this wound up being a constructive midlife crisis. I had studied business in college. I went right to law school at Chicago, and I really felt there were some gaps in my education, some big gaps in my education. I really needed to expand my range of experiences. I'd become, a big reader over the last decade or so, but the ideal of as Sarah said, sort of studying a range of subjects intensively really appealed to me. It really resonated with me. So for me, going into the program was really more of a personal project than a career decision. I think the kind of thinking I've got in practice with and the writing through the MLA program has helped me as a lawyer, but that wasn't the main point for me. The main point was really personal growth, and I've had a lot of that.
Well, so Tim, can we come to you? Lee and Sarah present two of the examples of why people come. You've seen over 10 years, hundreds and hundreds of examples. Can you maybe give us a snapshot of what you see as the candidates' motivations for coming to the MLA?
Sure. Well, as mentioned, we have a very diverse student body, different ages, geographies, and professions. And naturally, that diverse student body is going to have a diverse set of motivations. So, but having said that, I think it might be helpful to highlight a couple common categories of students that we tend to see drawn to the MLA. The first would be leaders or aspiring leaders in their industry, which has always been a consistently large segment of our student body. Many in this group have earned an MBA degree in their late 20s or early 30s. And they'll tell us in their candidate statements when they're applying, some version of their portfolio was no longer focused on reacting to day-to-day problems, no longer about tasks, but about people and perspective and the big picture. So they come to us seeking that cognitive boot camp that you had mentioned earlier, to push themselves to think through problems in new ways and creative ways. And not surprisingly, given what they do for a living, these students tend to gravitate toward our ethics and leadership concentration. Another category would be people who work in tech or tech adjacent professions. And it's sort of a similar story. By virtue of their prior education or their experience on the job, these students are already well versed and understand the technical side of their work. So they feel they've already mastered the what and the how of the technology they deal with, but they're pursuing the MLA to acquire new perspectives on their work and gain the critical thinking skills and the ethical frameworks to help enable them to ask the why questions about technology. And those are the exact sort of questions that are pursued in our tech and society courses. Sarah spoke well as to why somebody in sort of a communication-facing role would pursue the MLA. And a final category that's worth highlighting that I think Lee probably falls into is what we might call the lifelong learner. There has always been a sizable number of students in the MLA who aren't necessarily here for a specific career goal, but for personal enrichment and growth. These students are interested in the world around them, and they come to us to pursue big questions alongside eminent faculty in a community of like-minded peers.
Well, thank you all for those answers. I have one more question before we're going to go back to the learning journey. Sarah, you've been part of this program, and you're now 2.5 years out, right? And so you've seen the value. And so can you reflect on how the MLA helped you grow as a person in your profession and in your teaching role since you've graduated?
I think that the biggest thing I can say is that it helped me with big picture thinking. And what that translates into with work is better research, better understanding of intercultural communication, better empathy. I think that all of my classes, in one way or another, lifted that for me. And when it comes time to be a writer, a communicator, and a teacher, it also helps me improve my storytelling, which is, I think, the biggest rebellion I have against AI, which, everyone says is threatening my job and threatening my students' capabilities. And so it's an education that's helped me appreciate and create stories in a better way.
Well, and Lee, you said you wanted this to be an opportunity to come back and have fun and the joy of learning new things. How did that go for you?
Well, I mean, I noticed you use the term transformative in your slides, and I always say that this was, really a transformative experience for me in my life. I mean, going back to some of the experiences, there are distribution requirements. So you will be taking courses in a bunch of different varied subjects. I took everything from history of technology to 20th century short stories to neurobiology to Russian history. And maybe to give a little bit of a tangible example of how these affected me and drove my interest. I didn't have a clue about Russian history until I enrolled in Professor Gilbert's Russian history class. And I got so interested in it, and particularly with an intellectual movement from the 19th century in Russia called the Slavophiles, that I wound up grounding my thesis in an analysis of the Slavophiles. So, if you told me when I first started out that I was going to get really into Russian history and a very specific, philosophical movement in Russian history, that did not seem likely. The other thing I would say from a personal growth standpoint, I had never really written the kind of papers that you write in these classes. I had certainly never written a thesis. So, when it came to some of these things with the papers and particularly the thesis, I have a fair amount of confidence in myself, but I really wasn't positive I could do these things. And I wound up being able to do them, got a great deal of support, I think exceeded what I thought I could do, and really grew a lot personally from that experience. So, if you want to think about how this has really impacted my professional life, maybe it's more confidence. I really learned to say yes to new experiences. And, there are aspects of sort of personal growth here beyond just the educational, at least for me.
Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. I want to come back to all of you, but I'm going to move us forward into the details of the learning journey, and then we will hear about your experiences as learners. And let me just share my screen correctly here. Apologies for this interlude. Let me get it off what I think is presenter view. There we go. Perfect. All right. You should now see my screen the right way. Yes? Great. So let's talk about the learning journey that brought Lee and Sarah, to their growth and development. This is the curriculum at a glance. What you see are the 9 courses that make up the Master of Liberal Arts. The maroon are all the 4 divisions of the University of Chicago. And yes, in order to complete the MLA, you have to take a course in each of these divisional areas. Importantly, the MLA is designed for generally educated and interested audiences, not experts. So the individuals that will teach you will be our award-winning scholars in all of these areas. You will have someone who is deep into the biological sciences. For example, a neuroscientist teaches about the brain, and a climatologist teaches about carbon, energy, and the changing environment in the physical sciences. They do include the scientific journals that are included in their upper graduate courses, but they work with you to make sure that you can access and engage with that material as a generalist. And we do not include any math or other quantitative pieces that you might need a prerequisite for. So we literally set these courses up so that even though you are coming as a generally educated person without expertise that is deep in the biological or physical sciences, you can engage fully and successfully in these courses and be at the highest level of rigor. Then if you look under those 4, what you'll see is that there are 4 electives, and we'll talk in a moment about how if you want to concentrate in one of those 3 areas I talked about earlier, you would use 3 of these 4 electives toward that area of concentration. And you can also use up to 2 of these for classes anywhere in the university. And then finally, you finish your experience with a thesis, and we'll talk about all of these elements in a moment. So you have the divisional requirements. If you choose, you can then use your electives by having 3 or 4 of them aligned with one of these 3 thematic areas to obtain a concentration. And ethics and leadership is really about how you look on the reflective practices of leadership, and you do so from a liberal arts perspective. So for example, there's a course, World Wisdom Literature, where you look at how Aristotle, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, Eastern thinkers are approaching the domain of leadership as a philosophical tradition, as well as there are a number of courses that are looking at leadership from a slightly more practical and pragmatic perspective. Within literary studies, you're really looking at how great writers are able to narrate and tell stories, and you're often using that to hone your writing skills. And then within tech and society, you have a chance to ask the big questions that are right now at the very forefront of our world in terms of how to manage the disruptive technologies in a way that harnesses their power while still remaining true to ethical traditions. And so we have courses often taught by philosophers that are digging in to the many questions that are raised by the power of these new technologies around issues like privacy and around the common good. Alongside that potential concentration, you then have a thesis, and the format is set up intentionally flexible so that this can really be a capstone that is based on your learning journey. And oftentimes, individuals alongside an academic advisor who is your partner in this thesis are thinking about issues that really relate to their own either professional or personal journeys. And so here you see some of the examples, one that was done by someone who had relationships with a lot of farmers during COVID and was looking at how that impacted their farming communities. Another here, as you can see, using poetry as leadership training. And then finally, one of our fellows who is from Chile looked at this comparative analysis of the American and Chilean revolutions. And interestingly, he has since become a commentator for a number of Chilean news stations on the US and often draws out these comparisons in that setting. I will say a few things about the UChicago classroom. We are incredibly proud to have gifted facilitators. The way we think about faculty in a room where we have a lot of people with experience and wisdom is that their role is really to ask the right questions, to provide context, and then to allow the students to work together to co-construct knowledge. We have a convenient format. The classes are remote with synchronous seminar discussions, and the rooms are typically about 15 students to make sure that everyone is an active part of the classroom experience. And we also have, as we'll talk about, a chance to be in person over these week-long residential seminars. This is a place where we take ideas very seriously. We are a place where we want all viewpoints, and so we believe in the power of free expression and encourage students to make comments that allow others to be challenged and to think even more deeply about their views. I am incredibly proud to say that we have the best faculty at what is one of the world's best universities. These are individuals who elect, in addition to their existing teaching load, to take this on because they love teaching and they love the experience of actually engaging with adult learners who have decades of wisdom behind them. And so we are very fortunate that many of these are scholars that are at the deepest level and are winning awards and coining new terms in their fields, and simultaneously are just incredibly passionate about education and about the opportunity to engage with adult students. As I mentioned, one of the things that we're really excited about, and we encourage every student who's in the program to do at least once and maybe more, is that we wanted to have an opportunity for people to be in person on our extraordinary Hyde Park campus and to feel fully a part of the University of Chicago. At the same time, this is a program where, as I mentioned, more than 2/3 of the students are living outside of the greater Chicago area. And so the way we've approached this is that we have condensed courses where over a week you put in your 30 hours of instructional time together, and alongside the class, which takes place each day, we have extracurricular activities, dinners, and experiences so that you feel a huge part of the university during your time here. Our next residential seminar is coming up in May. It's called High Classical Athens. And I will say that those who want to try out the MLA, it's an opportunity to actually take this class as a non-credit student. And that is something that allows you to see into the MLA classroom even before you may decide to apply and or join. Alongside the academic experience, we have many other resources. We have someone who is devoted exclusively to writing support and has regular tutoring hours with you as an MLA student. You have full access to the library. And for those who are not near campus, don't worry. Libraries are no longer as physical as they used to be. One of the best ways to engage with our library, even if you're here in Hyde Park, is actually through all of the online databases and to set up time and office hours with a librarian who can help you in your research study, which can be easily done over Zoom. We have a vibrant alumni network. We have lots of in-person and university events. And then we have intensive academic advising so that we can have this align with your personal and professional goals. But let me not be the one to tell you all about this. We have 3 experts in the room. And so, Lee, let me start with you this time. You officially graduated last month and will be walking in the ceremony this June and actually talking in the ceremony this June because you're one of our graduation speakers. I'd love to hear from you about the journey and what this educational experience has been like and what it was like to go back to school, a mere 3.5 decades after being a student prior.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll make a few observations. I mean, one, the classroom environment. Nobody should come into this program thinking it's going to be easy. It's extremely challenging. I mean, these are real graduate level courses. There's a fair amount of reading. They're graduate classes at, one of the best universities in the world. I would say maybe the most rigorous university in the world. They're not watered down. So you need to be prepared to spend some time on this and spend some effort on it. I didn't find it overwhelming, even with a, pretty time intensive day job. But you're going to be watching less sports on TV. You're going to be probably watching less Netflix and doing a fair amount of reading and preparing for class. In terms of the classroom environment, everybody participates, everybody reads. That's probably one of the biggest differences from, when I was in college or even law school. People are really dedicated to this enterprise. And there's a really interesting range of people. I came upon in my classes, everybody from a retired bar owner from the south side of Chicago to a couple oncologists. I don't know what it was about oncology that drove people to this program, but lots of oncologists and a professional soccer referee and lots of other people. I mean, we had an age range, I would say, uh, everybody from their 20s. I had classes with a couple of guys who'd played college football and, maybe went a couple years after that and then came into the program to people in their 80s. So it's a great range of life experiences and ages and types of people. One other thing I would say, touching on something Seth mentioned, to me, a lot of the reward of being part of the MLA program, and I'm now part of the basic program because I couldn't bear to, give up taking these classes. And the basic program's a 4-year great book program, a very different kind of program, but a really great program as well. It's just the overall community. There are constantly symposia that are put on by the MLA program or the basic program or the LSI program. There are talks. I went to a great talk that preceded the holiday party in December by the theater critic from the Chicago Tribune. One role Seth plays is interviewer. I think if he gets tired of this, he's going to have a talk show because he does a lot of that, and that's always really fun. And social events, and it's really fun to meet in person some of the people that you've met, sort of constantly over Zoom and meet some of the instructors and professors as well. So just being part of the broader community and really leaping into that has been a huge part of it for me. I am able to make it to Hyde Park now 4 or 5 times a year, and I really jump at just about every opportunity to do something live. There's going to be, for example, a basic program sponsored weekend on Moby Dick in April. So I'll be coming to Hyde Park for that. So it's just been a fairly big part of my life since I embarked on this.
Well, Lee, I'm so glad you shared that because what we've aimed to do with the MLA and all the programs at Graham is make it really accessible and possible for folks who have a working life, they need to complete the degree, and they are serious about rigor, but they want to really constrain and focus. But then, optionally, just inundate with all these other community-oriented invitations. And so as a member of the MLA, you can complete the degree by going through one course a quarter and have it done in 3 years, or you can have that plus an almost endless sea of intellectual experiences that are being curated across this wider community of lifelong learners. So it's a great example, and I'm glad that you dialed into that because it's something that I think it makes our community very special and makes it very different than many of the other online degrees out there. We really do believe in the accessibility and flexibility online provides, but we want to complement it with what we hope is an opportunity to be as 3D as you are able to be in your current work-life balance. Sarah, can we hear your experience coming into the classroom, again, a few years after being a student originally, and maybe even your observations on what makes this classroom set special now that you see into many other classrooms?
Sure. So I would say knowing the reputation of the University of Chicago, I was a little nervous about the rigor of what, and like Lee said, these are real master's classes. But what's different about coming back as an adult versus, 18 or 19-year-old learner is that I had a better sense of self. So I wasn't really struggling with sorting that kind of stuff out in the same way. Not that I was any less busy as an adult, but the perspective was nice, and the perspective for my classmates was nice too. And what also changed, and I can compare this to my current students, I might ask a question now, or a professor when I was a freshman in college may ask a question, and there's the tryhards that like they want to jump up and answer the question. But in the MLA classroom, the better contribution is the student who asks their own questions and who builds on the conversation by maybe shifting the direction of our probe. And so I think that was something that was a really cool part of my experience as an adult student, was recognizing the value of a good question as opposed to this idea that I'm meant to know all the answers already.
And Tim, you've seen a lot of students go through, and you've seen into all of our classrooms as director for the last 10 years. Can you talk about what's distinctive about the MLA classroom?
Sure. Well, the Socratic seminar is the primary mode of instruction in our classes, and that's a fairly distinctive feature in and of itself. So if our classes are run as Socratic seminars, that means our classes meet live. They meet synchronous, 3 hours once a week for discussion. And the students are learning from each other because they're posing good questions like Sarah just alluded to, or they're answering other questions, leveraging their different backgrounds and life experiences. In a conversation with another alum not too long ago, they had described it as being in an MLA classroom as having box seats at the show because everyone's got a front row seat and they're participating. I've always been very fond of the phrase "the spirit of joint inquiry," and I think it captures the dynamic of our MLA classroom so well. There's disagreement and there's debate, but it's all done collegially and productively.
Well, so you mentioned this earlier, Sarah. UChicago's rigor can seem intimidating to a lot of people. Can each of you maybe just talk a little bit about the supports and how you've leveraged them along the way? I don't know if either of you worked with Millie as a writing coach or other library or academic services, but maybe just a little bit beyond the classroom. How did
Yeah.
you engage with the resources?
And I still actually engage with Callie. So
Okay.
Callie and Tim will help you figure out the classes that you're going to take. And I still reach out to Callie to ask about, what's going to be on a syllabus, and I'm curious about it. So even choosing your classes, you're not doing by yourself. I was so excited to go to the library, and I got to hold in my hand a 200-year-old copy of a Grimm's fairy tale book and use that as part of my thesis. And that like ability to engage with a special collection was really cool. But absolutely, Millie, the writing tutor, was essential for my abilities, especially in the thesis process with writing the proposal and refining my research questions, and just each step of the way having this, because she doesn't just send you feedback, she has a meeting with you to go through line by line what opportunities there are for the writing. And so I feel like the writing support was terrific. And also my thesis advisor was open to meeting with me in person as well. So because I'm in the Chicagoland area, I also got to meet with Professor Veeder to talk about the thesis while it was in process. And so I think I tapped into almost every resource I could. And that's what made this a special experience for me.
And Lee, how about you? Have you used resources beyond the classroom?
Um, I would second the point about Millie. I had never really done this kind of academic writing, so she was a tremendous resource in, helping me outline my thesis and think through that in particular. And I'd also echo the point about just the support, from Tim and Callie and others at the Graham School. I'm sort of technologically incompetent. So I remember Tim once spending an hour with me, sort of walking through how to use the online library resources. And then we even like corresponded back and forth a little bit about the idea for my thesis. And Tim had some reactions to that. And I'm, constantly engaging with Callie, who is a great resource. So I would really say, there is a tremendous amount of thought that goes into the structure of the Graham School, the support that's provided. And, I've really enjoyed, in my community engagement, really, getting to be, friends with Tim and Callie and Seth and many others at the Graham School. It's just, a great community, all bound together by a love of learning. And some would say nerddom, but I think that's a little unfair.
Tim, before we jump into the application details, anything else you want to share as our director? And then I'm going to turn it over to Carrie.
Well, just it's been mentioned here, but program staff are all deeply committed to student success. There's tailored academic advising, and we help students stay on stay on top of various administrative requirements and deadlines. Faculty are, I mean, they're outstanding teachers, but they're also likewise very committed to student success. They're generous with their time. They can make themselves available outside of class. And also they understand the nature of our students. They're working professionals, they're busy, and so deadlines and extensions on papers and things like that tend to be granted. Um, Echoing the praise that Lee and Sarah gave to our writing advisor, Millie Ray. Millie will do nuts and bolts grammar stuff with students and then help to conceive of thesis projects and more big picture issues that come up in their papers. Um, I guess the final thing I can say about Millie is that every quarter I'll hear from a few students who are reaching out to praise the support they got from Millie or lamenting the fact that they didn't seek out Millie and her writing services earlier in their MLA career.
Well, let me add Carrie Dempsey back into our mix here. Hello, Carrie. And I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to talk through the application, and then she'll be moderating the Q&A. So I'll take myself out of here, and I will share my screen so that you can finish us off here, Carrie.
Great, thanks, Seth. So running through some important dates and important details. One is our spring application deadline is quickly approaching on March 3rd, and that would allow you to enter the program March 23rd. If you are considering autumn start, and I think we have a couple people here today that are, that application deadline is on September 2nd. But focusing back on spring again, I know March 3rd sounds far away, but as you can see here, we have a lot of steps in the application process. So if you haven't opened your application yet, I strongly encourage you to do that within the next few days and start working on this. So the first aspect needed is a writing sample. You do need to submit a 5-page double space piece of writing that you have created. You don't necessarily need to create something that new though. A lot of our applicants either use something, if they were recently in an academic setting, you can share a piece from that. Or a lot of times people might share a report that they wrote for work. If you are uncertain if your writing sample would meet the requirements that we're looking for, we are happy to review that for you ahead of you submitting your application. So you can email that piece to us. We will review, we will provide you feedback, and I'll add the email address to the chat in a few minutes. In another item, anytime that you save repurposing a writing sample, we strongly encourage you put that time and effort into your candidate statement. This is such an important piece of the application. It really allows us to understand your motivations behind the program, what you're hoping to accomplish in it. So really take some time and energy and focus on that piece. You also need 2 letters of recommendation. A lot of times we are waiting on this as the last step of the process. So start having those conversations now with the people that you're going to request those recommendations from. You need to submit all your transcripts from prior institutions that you've attended. For the application, we just need unofficial transcripts. We do not need you to chase down official transcripts from your institutions. We will collect those if you are admitted to the program, but for the application step, unofficial is just fine. We'll also want a copy of your resume. If you are an international student and you need to, we may need you to take submit your English proficiency scores. If you're uncertain if that pertains to you, just reach out. We'll share those guidelines and talk you through that process. There is a $75 application fee. However, because you attended this info session today, we are able to waive that for you. There will be a few steps in the process in order to be able to take advantage of that application waiver. You will receive an email tomorrow with a code in it. Keep the email. You're going to have to upload that to the application system when you go to submit and request the fee waiver. Also, do not pay the application fee because we are unable to credit it back to you. But you'll see the steps on how to go through that process in the email that we'll send you. And then finally, there is an interview that is a part of this process as well. This isn't a test of your knowledge of the liberal arts. It's really to answer any questions that we may have had after reviewing the application and just better understand you and your motivations for the program. And then for tuition and financial aid, I believe we had a question about this in the chat. So based on current academic year, the cost per course is $4,325. There are 9 courses within the program. That puts total tuition at $38,925 based on this year's prices. There are a number of different ways that students look to fund this, though. One is we do have partial merit scholarships that are available. You will see the option to be considered for those when you're submitting the application, and there is an essay that is part of that process. We also see some students use federal financial aid. That program is currently changing. So if you are a student that is taking about 2 to 3 classes a quarter, that is the minimum in order to qualify for federal financial aid. The current Grad Plus loans are only available for students who are entering programs until June 30th. So if you are interested in Grad Plus, you would need to apply for the spring quarter. The financial aid landscape is continuing to evolve, and it will change a little bit heading into fall. But I would say if federal financial aid is something that you are considering, keeping your eye on the UChicago financial aid, graduate financial aid page, and I'll drop that link in the chat as well. That's a good place to just kind of stay up to date on what's occurring there. Some students, a lot of our students actually really only take 1 course per quarter because they're actively working. For those students, private loans are an option for you. And the university is actually working on a list of preferred providers for private loans. And this list, we receive no kickback or anything like that. There's no benefit for us if you use this, but we are having a lot of students who are asking questions about loan providers. This is just a list of providers that the universities had good working relationship with. We feel like they're loan providers you can trust. But we will work with any loan that you find are not restricted in any way to this list. It's merely to be helpful to you. And that list should be published within the next couple of weeks. And then we strongly encourage all of you to, if you're working, check with your employer's tuition reimbursement benefits. Many of our students are able to use these to offset the cost of their tuition. So you can speak directly with your HR department and they will help you understand that process. Great. So I know we have shared a lot of information with you, but we'd love to hear your questions. There's some that have come in the chat, but you can also feel free to take yourself off mute and ask us as well. So a couple of questions that have come in. I know some have had answers to them.
Carrie,
Yes.
can I ask a question just
Yeah.
for the group since there's a multitude of you folks online. Could you just kind of talk through why you think this program is, maybe more beneficial than something like an MBA. And I know you guys kind of touched on it earlier in the session, but if you could speak to that specifically, that'd be lovely.
Well, so what I would say is that we don't see this as better, but we do see it as distinct. And so there are going to be some individuals for whom this may be the right fit. And the way I describe that is individuals that are at a stage where they feel like critical thinking, creativity, leadership, and often where they have some level of proficiency in an area but they want to gain this broader, more expansive set of skills, this may be a really good opportunity. If someone is trying to enter business and is 23 and wants to be able to show their proficiency and knowledge in a specific domain of business, obviously we think the MBA would be the ideal degree and it would give you that type of proficiency. So, I think we see it as different in what it offers. And why this often meets people in midlife is because they have gained some level of proficiency in a technical or field area, and they want to both have this cognitive boot camp and broaden and be more expansive. And I apologize. After answering this, I will leave the rest of this group to answer the others because we had Al Michaels on the Super Bowl week offer to speak with our community, and it happens at 1 p.m. And so I'm headed virtually over to that event. But look forward. If anyone has questions for me after this, I'm happy to talk individually. But I leave you in excellent hands.
Great. Thank you, Seth. So I see we have a question in the chat. How long is this for a full-time student? We see students, some students can do this program in as short as about a year and a half. If you're taking 3 courses per quarter, there is the special project or thesis, which some students will spread out over a little bit longer of a time, often longer than a quarter. But I'd say maybe if you're trying to get through very quickly, it could be a year and a half, but students do have up to 5 years to complete the program. And then did I see a hand raised in the chat? Is it Cece? Did you have a question?
Yes, and I think that me raising my hand probably shows that I'm about to say. So, first off, I just wanted to say this really does look like a great opportunity. I was wondering, for a student fresh out of, say, a 4-year institution with a BA who doesn't have any professional experience yet, how would you say this program fits for them? I just graduated with honors from Arizona State University. I just got a Bachelor of Arts in English, and I was just wondering how someone that's a little bit younger that maybe hasn't had a experience in the work world yet, how they really fit into the ecosystem of the whole thing, like how that works.
Let me
Yes.
take a shot at that based on some of the people I've been in class with. I mean, we do have some of those people in the classes, and I think there is a path for somebody like you. You focused on English. I would emphasize the multidisciplinary aspect of what we do in the MLA program to, expand your horizon. I mean, I don't think there's any reason this couldn't be suitable for somebody coming right out of college. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an investment banker, as Seth was talking about, or you have some other really specific thing you want to do, you may be looking to a more specific program. But, I think having people right out of college contributed to the diversity of viewpoints, and it's definitely something that can work with a program, or what I saw.
Yeah, I would have said something very similar. It's a great question, Cece. Every year we have a couple students in similar circumstances. Lee mentioned taking some classes with folks like that. We have a student that just started last month, started winter quarter, a year out of undergrad, a teacher right now in the Chicagoland area. So, as to the question of how a person like you fits into the ecosystem, younger voices offer a unique perspective by virtue of being outside of sort of the normal distribution of who's in the classroom. So those unique perspectives are valued and welcome. But to the question of how could this program fit with you? It I think it certainly depends on your circumstances, where you're at, and your career goals. And I would just sort of end my response by saying I'd be more than happy to schedule a call or exchange emails with you to go into the details more and figure out if this might be a good fit for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I saw the email that you sent. I meant to reach back out, but yeah, so I guess another question I was wondering, what would be an example schedule? So, as I said, I'm obviously not yet a working professional, but I do work part-time in the afternoons. I have some things in the evening that I do, like kind of not extracurriculars, but something kind of like that. So, what's the flexibility for synchronous learning and balancing that with other life activities?
So we have 10-week quarters, autumn, winter, and spring, and summer tends to be a lighter schedule. Autumn, winter, spring, we might have 5 or 6 offerings and maybe 2 over the summer. So if you enroll in the class in any of those quarters, you're signing up to take a class once a week for 3 hours. A class will either meet Monday through Thursday, 6:30 to 9:30 Chicago time. Um, or a class can meet on Saturday mornings, 9:30 to 12:30 Chicago time. So each class meets on a given night of the week. So if you take literature class in the spring, you're taking classes on Thursday evenings for a 10 week stretch. And obviously, if you're half time or full time, you're taking 2 classes or 3 classes. But the norm is to take 1 class a quarter. And I had the train of thought just went running away from me. But I hope the part that did come out answered the question.
Uh,
It did. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. Unfortunately, somehow my computer booted me out right at the end when you were probably saying some of these
Oh,
things that
right.
I'm asking now. Sorry about that. I was wondering about, so I'm assuming this was probably the part that I missed. When it comes to scholarships, how does the application process, like what would be some examples of those for maybe say like merit based? I don't know if it affects how well you did in college or anything like that would contribute to.
we do have
Yeah,
partial
so
merit. Oh, sorry. We do have
no, go
partial
ahead,
merit
Carrie.
scholarships available. You'll see an option on the application to be considered for that, and there'll be an essay that you'll need to submit.
Perfect. Okay.
Great, thanks. So Tim, a few more questions from the chat. One is, are classes recorded in case one is missed? Which would be yes.
Yeah, that depends on the faculty member. Some do it as a routine part of the class. They hit record at the beginning of every class session. Other faculty prefer not to, under the assumption that students might be feel more free to speak candidly if knowing that it's not recorded.
And are there any opportunities to take additional classes outside of the 8 that are required?
Yes, it's the nerd's been thrown around a couple times here, and in the spirit of that, I'll say that I can't put a number on it, but certainly every year there's students that we call them surplus classes. They complete the degree requirements, and before they decide to formally graduate, they take more classes. I think there's somebody right now working on 14 or 15, and I mean that
Yeah.
speaks to the character of the students, but also how great the classes are, I think.
And Tim, would you like to talk just a little bit about the new fellowship offering that's available to students once they complete the MLA to continue their studies?
Oh, sure. So every year that I've been here, alumni or soon to be alumni will reach out and say, what do I do next? What do I do next? So um, this past fall, we launched a new program for our alumni. We're calling it the MLA Fellowship Program, but alums come back. They apply to the program with a specific research project in mind. And they'll spend 2 years with us pursuing and executing that research question that they have. So the way that we've talked about it is students apply to the MLA degree to gain tools of interdisciplinary inquiry. And they would apply. The alumni that choose to do this fellowship are applying to put those tools to use in pursuit of a specific research project. So the alums that get in that apply to the program and are admitted, they take 3 classes with us over the course of the first year. And then the second year is spent executing that capstone project with the goal of taking it public, either publication in an academic journal or a presentation at a professional or academic conference.
Great. I think we've covered everything that came in via the chat. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hey, yes, I'm gonna unmute. This is Zia Azadi Williams Bobby. My camera's not on because I'm home with a sick toddler, and also working professional, halfway on the clock, halfway off. So I've been listening as intently as I can. And my major question is, do you record this call? Because I 100% wanted to play back all of the wonderful and amazing contributions and attentively. And so I'm wondering how this recorded session is shared with us and if we'll have access to it at all.
Yes, you'll receive a link to the recording tomorrow in the same email that will have the details on requesting the application fee waiver. Great. It looks like we have another question. The name is begins with a B, sorry.
Brittany Gagne. Hello.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This has all been very helpful to try to help make a decision. But just one question. I'm confused. Do the residential seminars fulfill one of the 9 classes requirements? And if they do, how many do you offer?
The answer is yes. You get a full course credit being on campus with us for 1 week. And the last couple of years, we've been doing 2 a year. We do one in May and then one over the summer. There's been some years that we've done 3, but they tend to be in the warmer months because it's in Chicago. So we'll do May or the summer. And occasionally we've done one in September as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? No, well, thank you so much for coming and spending your lunchtime with us today. We really appreciated being able to share our program with you and answering your questions. So if you do have any follow-up questions after you leave the session today, feel free to send us an email at the mla-admissions@uchicago.edu email address. We're happy to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lee and Sarah. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lee and Sarah. Thank you, Tim. Bye.